Today we're looking at Realworlds Wonder Woman, released in 2000, written by Glenn Hansen and Alan Neuwirth with art by Salgood Sam. Before we start, let me introduce you to our Wonder Woman. Meet Brenda Kelly. She's an actress just trying to make it in Hollywood, and at the moment, she plays Wonder Woman in film serials. She's hoping that she'll get a big break soon and be able to star in bigger pictures. She's also dating a writer named Charles Bennett. Let me also paint a picture of the setting. Taking place in a post-World War II America, Realworlds Wonder Woman's plot is centered around a Hollywood actress who portrays Wonder Woman in serials, and due to the political climate, the Red Scare is gearing up. Anti-communist propaganda is everywhere. Due to this, lots of people in Hollywood are losing their jobs for having worked on pictures with little to no connection to the Soviet Union. It's like a witch hunt. If anyone is suspected to be a communist or even a sympathizer, they are outed and ostracized. Now that we have a little context, let's get into the story. We open up watching a film serial. A Nazi called the Baroness is hanging Steve Trevor and Etta Candy over a tank of sharks. Wonder Woman and a Russian hero called Natasha Romancy bust in. They make short work of the Baroness, and Wonder Woman says that together they can defeat the Axis. Then the serial finishes. We zoom out and see that it's being shown on a big screen at a political rally. The speaker is a politician named Jack Randolph. He's a senator running for re-election. Later on, we see a newspaper headline saying that Jack Randolph is putting Hollywood studios on blast for showing pro-communist pictures. The head of the studio, Mr. Goldman, gives the order to stop showing anything related to communism. Cut to this thick redhead chick named Millie Walker. She plays Etta Candy, Wonder Woman's sidekick. She picks up a script for Wonder Woman versus the Red Menace, then walks through the set, passing Superman and Batman on their smoke break. She flirts with Superman for a second before talking to a guy named Stefan Respetska, a writer at the studio. Someone says his attorney is on the phone for him, so Millie says bye, and then she walks into the wardrobe room. Here we see Brenda in her new Wonder Woman costume. We then see Stefan in a meeting with studio heads. They're firing him because he attended pro-communist meetings. They cut him off and ask for the names of others who attended as well. We cut later to see Brenda at home with her boyfriend, Charles. They're about to get it on in her Wonder Woman costume, but before that happens, we cut again. They're at a club celebrating. They put up a toast to Charles on being Hollywood's next IT writer-director, saying that something like this could only happen in America, where dreams come true. Just then from the bar, Stefan comes, mocking their toast, calling America the land of hypocrisy. He goes on and then he knocks over a tray of drinks. He's clearly very drunk, so Brenda and Charles take him home, saying they've never seen him like this. Several days later, we see protesters outside of the studio. Charles has come for a meeting with the head of the studio, Mr. Goldman. We see him call the protesters worthless and ask if Charles had any issue getting around them. Mr. Goldman complains about unions for a second before they get into the real reason for the meeting. They tell Charles that they're putting his film, Aurora, on hold due to the strikes and the studio being short on labor. They tell Charles to take a vacation and he leaves. We then see him sitting in his car looking frustrated. Cut to another serial. Wonder Woman is fighting the Red Menace. Mr. Goldman is showing Jack Randolph the new serial, and he approves. He approves so much that he wants to speak with the cast and crew at that moment, so they go over to where Brenda is filming. Before they get there, we see Brenda is shooting a scene but stops, stating that her bracelets are really heavy. The wardrobe guy says they're made of steel and that they're from another film. We then see Millie gossip to Brenda that Aurora is a go-again and that she heard from Stefan. Mr. Goldman and Jack arrive, and he asks Brenda to make a public appearance as Wonder Woman at his next event, and she agrees. Later, Brenda is having a chat with Charles. She tells him that Aurora is a go-again and that she is going to make a public appearance at Jack Randolph's event. Charles is hesitant because of Jack's politics, but Brenda assures him that publicity is good. Charles then makes a phone call telling his agent that Aurora is back on. The call ends and his agent says that things are about to get messy and that he's glad that he's not Charles. Now at the event, Brenda is hesitant about saying the lines provided, but she is reassured by someone telling her that she's not saying these things. Wonder Woman is. She then goes out as Wonder Woman and endorses Jack, saying he will stand against communists and fascists. People love her in this role, so Jack decides to keep using Wonder Woman at his events. We then cut to Charles. He sees Stefan and asks him about Aurora, but Stefan doesn't say much and he tells Charles to ask someone else in a strange tone. He does go to ask, but he isn't given a clear answer, so he freaks out. He goes up to Mr. Goldman demanding answers, but Mr. Goldman explodes and kicks him off the lot. Cut to Brenda and Millie in their green room. Millie is being fired for attending a socialist party meeting from years ago. She says that she only went because she was struggling enough that socialism started sounding appealing. Millie tells Brenda to keep playing Wonder Woman and that she'll be okay. Later we see Brenda back at home. Charles tells Brenda what happened and then the doorbell rings. Brenda goes to answer it. It's Stefan. He came to tell them that when he was pressed about who else attended pro-communist meetings, he said Charles's name. Charles is furious. He kicks Stefan out. Then he has a rant about how unfair all of this is. is. Cut to the studio later on. There's a crowd of protesters at the front. From his office, Mr. Goldman calls them ungrateful punks. Stefan is there to talk with Mr. Goldman. He's trying to clear Charles's name. It doesn't work, and then Mr. Goldman puts in the order to kick the protesters out. Security guards start blasting the protesters with fire hoses, and among the people hit is Millie. Brenda, in costume as Wonder Woman, standing on the lot, sees her get hit and runs to help her. Mr. Goldman from his window sees Brenda helping Millie and is pissed that she is seen aiding a protester. Brenda is angry at seeing her friends treated terribly, and Mr. Goldman orders people to clean up Brenda and bring her in for a meeting. Later, we see Charles on a golf course trying to talk to and get help from his agent, but all he can say is that Charles is blackballed because he's a communist. Now we cut to the meeting between Brenda and Mr. Goldman. He tells her that she shouldn't have stepped in to help the protester because she could have gotten hurt, and that would have been bad for her film career. He also says that she shouldn't be dating Charles because people think he's a communist. He ends by saying that she has a bright future at the studio and that she shouldn't ruin it. After that, we see Brenda return home. Charles is burning everything to do with Aurora in their fireplace. He asks if she'll run away with him to Europe to get away from everything, but she declines. And then a letter arrives saying Charles is being summoned to an anti-communist committee next week. She pleads with him to go and clear his name, and we last see him sitting and thinking. We then see Mr. Goldman having dinner with Jack Randolph. Jack says he wants more Wonder Woman appearances at his event, but he has a problem with Brenda being in a known relationship with Charles because people think he's a communist. Mr. Goldman says not to worry because he sorted that out. During this conversation, we zoom out to see Stefan standing outside listening. Cut to Charles at the committee. They're giving him no opportunities to speak until eventually they ask about his name. Charles changed his name years back, which is normal for people in Hollywood. The committee, however, says that he is hiding his communist roots and therefore he is a communist. They ask him to surrender over his accomplices. However, Charles refuses and they throw him in jail. About a week passes and now we see Millie talking with Brenda about the whole situation. Millie says that at least she can still work, but she's annoyed she has to go spew propaganda at Jack's rally. Millie says it's too bad Wonder Woman couldn't just come in and solve everything. Brenda agrees and we see that she gets an idea. Finally, now we're at Jack's latest rally. He gives a little speech saying he's pro-democracy, but then the Red Menace appears on stage. He says he's there to kill Jack. Then Wonder Woman shows up. Jack runs for the Red Menace as Wonder Woman lassos the henchman. Jack clocks him for fascist America. Right after the action is done, Brenda asks if she can have the mic for a second. She then proceeds to give a speech. She says that what just happened on stage was a performance, but she wants to talk about the real world. Funny. She goes on to talk about how America is great and that there are people who want to take their freedom away and how there are people who want to silence others just for their opinion. She then says that there's an innocent man named Charles Bennett who is behind bars due to being accused of being a communist and that Jack Randolph is the reason why. She says what happened to Charles could happen to anybody. She continues, but she's dragged off of stage. But just then, Stefan is there with a gun. He's had enough. He says Jack is a monster and must be stopped. He fires his gun at Jack, but Brenda's in the way. The bullet bounces off of Brenda's bracelet and goes into her shoulder. A security guard pulls out a gun and shoots Stefan in the chest. He then shoots him twice more as Brenda watches. We zoom out and see Brenda laying on stage bleeding and Stefan laying on the floor dead. 2 months pass and we're in a movie theater. A Wonder Woman serial is playing, and from the cast list we know that it's a newer serial. They've been recast. Brenda and Millie walk out. We see now that they're in New York. They talk for a bit and they're glad Brenda is still alive, unlike Stefan. Then Charles arrives. They start walking together to go to dinner. We learn that Aurora is alive and Charles is putting it on stage instead of on film, with Brenda starring. The last thing he says is that good or bad, nothing lasts forever. We then pan to a newsstand and see a headline on a newspaper. Jack Randolph has been re-elected in a landslide victory. The end. Big surprise! I like this story. While it's not my favorite from the Realworlds line, I still enjoyed it. I found the premise interesting. Like, the last time I thought about the Red Scare was when I watched Mr. Plinkett's review of Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. I don't really have much else to say other than I like the art, and I believe that the final confrontation where Brenda as Wonder Woman stands up not for what is popular or accepted at the time, but for what is right, setting an example for good and hopefully inspiring other people. I don't feel too strongly about the story though, so I'll keep it brief. This is the last book I have to cover from the Realworlds line, so go check out the other 3 videos. But anyways, thanks for watching. Cheers.